Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round 5 of the 939 Corse Touring Car Championship for 2024. We are here this evening at Brands Hatch, a bit of a historic racing circuit. One of my personal favourites. We always get some cracking racing action here in the hilly rural parts of the UK here. At least it is by my standards, obviously from the north. Everything's concrete. But we are here this evening in the LP GTM GT3 which should be an exciting round here. Just over 5 minutes ago in qualifying. Qualifying currently being led by John Cole. A 125.1 sees him currently on provisional pole, with Colin Knief just closely behind. Of course, Colin Knief, current championship leader. He's hoping to try and improve on that time, and as I say that, he does in the Martini liveried car there. A 125.116 by only 200ths of a second. Very close quarters then at the top end of the field for tonight's racing. Alan Matthews about 9/10ths down there. Then we have a bit of a mid-pack battle going on between Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton. That is a sentence I have said many times in the past, and I'm sure I will be saying plenty this evening. Then it is Paul Brady. Yes, that is Paul Brady. No, it's not Paul Brady, it's Andrew Brammer. Apologies. Apologies, Paul. It's Andrew Brammer. It's Andrew Brammer, and then Jack Hodson, Steve Knight rounding out the running, so far at least in qualifying. So Colin Knief then with that very impressive lap time, that 125.116. John Cole, though, we expect will be going for a bit of a late one. We're having some word from the paddock that Matt Daly should be joining us in the next few minutes there, so that'll be interesting. Always a Matt Daly special is that in qualifying, is to jump in at the very last moment. Yes, this is actually a relatively big, a relatively powerful, relatively capable car for the streets here in streets, not street circuit at all, here in Brands Hatch. In such a fast and powerful car, this circuit will be feeling even more narrow than it usually does. Those those blades of grass to the side of the track will be feeling ever so closer. Those curbs will be ever more enticing, and they were a little bit too enticing for John Cole there. I think we'll put that down to commentator's curse. That is very unfortunate there. Apologies for that one. John straight back into the pits for John, who was pushing clearly to try and improve on his 125.13 there, to try and beat a 125.11. As a reminder of how close the margins there are at the final 5 minutes of this session. These two drivers are about 10 laps into the stint here, so plenty of laps in the behind the wheel of Colin Knief, John Cole, Alan Matthews, and Steve Knight's car there. Heading into the final few minutes of qualifying now, and this will be these drivers' last chance to try and set any decent laps here. With about 3 minutes in the session, you're probably looking at one quick warm and one quick run through. In fact, you'd have to be starting your warm-ups now. Now these are going to be these drivers' final few attempts at a qualifying run here. The driver most in contention for that pole position, aside from Colin Knief, who's done the job that he needs to do, is John Cole. At this stage, though, Colin Knief is probably looking to improve on his time to try and ensure that little bit of extra security, make sure that he is definitely on that pole position. So we'll have a look at where the drivers are on track now. The driver will be first to cross the line next to finish this next lap will be John Cole. He's heading through the Surtees Bend now. We have a run down And it's a big drop down the Pilgrim's Drop, and then next up it is the Hawthorne Bend, the right-hander, which is a little bit like Cox at Silverstone actually, and just how enticing it is to try and run to the outside line of the circuit there. You'll have to be careful that he doesn't do that, just about get away with it. Doesn't, of course, fall foul of track limits. We're seeing Colin Keefe is actually having a little bit of traffic to contend with. I believe that is Jack Hodson. Yes, it is. So Colin Keefe's attempt on this lap, at least, will be pretty much null and void, though John Cole is heading down the clearways straight, the clearways back straight for one. The last time on this lap, he will get another lap in, a bit of oversteer creeping in. That is going to cost him precious tenths there in John Cole's car. I think that will pretty much ruin this fast lap attempt. And there we go, yes, 125.5, so we've slightly scrubbed in tyres now. John Cole's going to have one more attempt here at Brands Hatch. He won't make it round in time for another fast lap. His tyres will be on the hotter side, so they're not going to be entirely happy with him. Let's see if he can carry on. Andrew Rammer decided that's all he can do in this session. A 127.5 puts him in the midfield somewhere. The sun beaming down on this circuit. As we head, though, final minute to go in the session, heading up towards the top of the Pilgrim's Drop once again with John Cole. Colin Keefe was not able to improve last time round. It was a 125.2, but did, perhaps more importantly for him, set a strong purple sector in the middle sector. So that middle technical part of this lap was purple for him. So he's clearly found something that works, and he might be able to apply it on this lap. He's got no traffic to contend with, of course. In fact, Jack Hodson might benefit from a tiny slipstream, at least maybe at the start of the lap where he was a little bit closer. But all of our eyes are peeled on John Cole at the moment to see what he can do in these final dying breaths of this qualifying session before our double-header race weekend here at Brands Hatch. It's clearways once again for John Cole as we head through the Clark curve for one last time in fast conditions in this qualifying session. What's it going to be for John Cole as he crosses the line in just a moment? There's no improvements in the first two sectors, and there's no improvements in that final sector as well. It's a 25.4 as the brake discs glow red hot. Meanwhile, we're going to go back on board with Colin Keefe in the Martini liveried car. He's back on to the straight as well, the Brabham straight there. As he crosses the line, it's an improvement in the final sector. It wasn't the purple sector in the end. And once again in the middle sector. He already said that last time round. It was a strong middle sector and an even better final sector. It's a 24.9 for Colin Keefe right at the very end of the session. Did all that he needed to do and is our first driver into the 24s here at Brands Hatch. An impressive showing from Colin Keefe in this session then. It looks like John Cole did actually cross the line in time and may have missed that. He's pushing and he's actually improved. So we're going to stay on board, and our timing system is showing him is still active in this session. So Colin Keefe, maybe not completely clear just yet. He's got that little bit of extra security as Alan Matthews crosses the line there. It hasn't updated for him, but he's certainly finished his fast lap running now to 26.0 in the end for him, so no improvement there. Steve Knight apparently still out on track as well. Colin Keefe retiring from the session. Steve Knight having an issue there, we saw at the very end. So not too much he's going to be able to do at the end of this session. He retires as well. Let's see then. John Cole heading back onto the Brabham straight once again. A 125.1 to beat, a 124.9 to try and beat. It was a 125.1 that time around. Very close indeed, but not enough, unfortunately, for John Cole there. Our system is still showing Alan Matthews as active in the session once again. So maybe, I'm fairly certain, it could just be my... In the 2 weeks that I've been away from the AROC Racing Leagues, apparently I've forgotten everything. I could have just somehow missed something. But he's 10 laps into the session and looks to be going decently fast. Let's just try to get back into the pits so we don't have to recover the car in between sessions. A couple of offs there though, that will see him pretty much out of the running in terms of a decent fast lap here at Brands Hatch. He has not improved this time round. Is looking to be a 1.3 positive delta there, so 1.3 seconds worse than his previous fast lap attempt. I suspect he'll be bringing his running to an end now, but it was in the end Colin Keefe who took the trophy in the end with an impressive 24.9. It was looking quite close at 1.2 hundredths of a second. That's been expanded out to a Casimus gap, not at all. Is that a big gap? That's 0.2 of a second only separating Colin Keefe from John Cole, but that brings an end to the running here in qualifying at Brands Hatch. We'll join you in just a few moments for the first race of our doubleheader race weekend. at you in just a moment. Welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Just over 1 minute to go now until lights out here at Brands Hatch. Let's have a look at that grid. It's Colin Keith, John Cole, Alan Matthews, Barry Clayton the first two rows, then Jack Houghton, Andrew Brammer on the third, and Steve Knight rounding out the running for what will be a slightly truncated grid here at Brands Hatch, but probably for the best. As I was saying in qualifying, these are very capable, very wide cars, and Brands Hatch is very technical, very narrow traditional British circuit. So it would be a tall order to try and squeeze so many of these GT cars. Of course, GTs do run at Brands Hatch in real life, but it's they're certainly very fast in relation to the rest of the track. Of course, F1 cars run at Brands Hatch as well, but it's certainly on the narrower side, shall we say. It's not quite. Well, I presume it probably does hold FAA Grade 1 status. It's not exactly what you think of when you say FAA Grade 1, but hopefully we're going to have some Grade 1 launches from these drivers here as the revs begin to rise, and we have just under 10 seconds now to light out. Smoke pouring out of some of these cars. You can see a heat haze as well, as there's 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for our first runaway of the evening. A great launch from the inside of Colin Keith's car. Great camera work from the director. That is a mixture of myself and the computer itself, but we head through the first corner. And all looking relatively clean, actually everyone getting away, no one completely planted into the gravel at the first corner, which is not always given here at Brands Hatch, and Colin Keith with a great start for himself there as well. John Cole keeping up with him, only a few tenths behind. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews is certainly under pressure now as we head into the middle part of the lap. It's Alan Matthews against Jack Houghton and Barry Clayton here. Side by side, it's going to be Jack Houghton who's having a bit of a look around the outside into the next corner, heading through Surtees here. John Cole, by looks of things, has got things a little bit out of control, went a little bit too wide on the exit of Surtees, trying to keep up momentum, trying to keep up with John Cole, trying to keep up with Colin Keith, and unfortunately for him, a bit too much grass there. That upset the back end of the car. He tried to correct it, nearly caught it, but has ended up correcting himself into the barrier. He's still pointing in the right direction, but has dropped 2 positions there, so not a great race start here for John Cole. That frees up Colin Keith. Colin Keith, our championship leader, is now free to set those impressive lap times that he was demonstrating in practice and quali, and he's looking in a good position, it must be said. We're going to go back on board, though, with Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, who we said was under a bit of pressure. That pressure has been amped up ever so more. It was a couple of cars behind him now, 3 cars behind him, one of those being John Cole, who was faster in qualifying. But it's currently Jack Hodson who's putting on that pressure, following him in that slipstream. I was about to say someone's dropped into the pit, and that is me. So fear not there, as Colin Keneath nearly dropped into the gravel by the looks of things. There are some tyre marks there that may have been from the race start, though, so perhaps a bit of a red herring there. John Cole gets past Jack Hodson this time, so nice easy pass him back up into P3. Not fair tonight. There aren't too many easy passes to be had here at Brands Hatch, it must be said, as I say. It's very difficult to execute a race on these sort of big cars. Everyone, of course, in the touring car running, or the GT running, if you will, opting for the slick tyre, because that's the only choice of tyre you really have in this car for these sorts of conditions. They tend to last for 25 minutes pretty comfortably, if not a little bit more. Our Winter Endurance Challenge certainly proved that. There are some tracks where, especially based on the driving style, where you can wear them out quite quickly. Off the top of my head, Portimao was pretty much mullering them. One circuit we didn't visit during the Winter Endurance Challenge, as we got familiar with these cars, was the Nordschleife, and in a fortnight's time we'll have something a little bit special, so keep your eyes peeled on that date there. Barry Clayton has dropped back a few positions there, down into P5 for Barry Clayton. That looks to actually be as a result of the timing system. That one, as Colin Keith being pointed out, he's just running away with it in second purple sectors, lap after lap. He's absolutely flying along at the moment in the low 25s, everyone else in the 26s. John Cole, second fastest out on track, putting that pressure on Alan Matthews. This is going to be his next overtake now, so let's stay on board as he is hunting down the white and green Braun-inspired car, as I've now coined it. But yes, one track we didn't visit is Nordschleife, so keep your eyes peeled for that date in 2 weeks' time, because we'll be visiting the Nordschleife in these cars. It will be a practice of quali, and no double-header weekend. It will be one single race, and this race is going very well for John Cole after it started so poorly. He's back up into P2 with a very textbook move there. Looked clean, looked easy into the Hawthorne bend, side by side, kept the momentum up behind in the slipstream, took the extra momentum, and was able to, slightly late on the brakes, go around there with ease. So John Cole back up into P2, 5 seconds worse off compared to where he was a couple of laps to go, but still on course for a decent result as it stands. Let's see what the likes of Alan Matthews and maybe Jack Hodson and maybe Barry Clayton as well can do from here. Still 20 minutes to go in this race, of course. In fact, let's have a look at what they're doing, because they're having a bit of a battle here as we get back onto the Brabham Straight. Thought Barry Clayton might have gone for the slipstream there. He used it to good effect getting onto the Brabham Straight, but that's given him the outside line. Now he wants that outside line. It's brave heading through the Paddock Hill bend, of course, but it looks to have worked for him as he dives to the inside there. Jack Hodson defended the outside. That's left the door open for him on the inside, heading down the Paddock Hill bend and into Druids. Nothing he could do though. Car's a little bit too wide, the track a little bit too narrow. Great defence from Jack Hodson there, and great attempt at taking the opportunity, at least, from Barry Clayton. I'm sure we're going to see more of that though, so we'll stay on board with them. But at the moment, yes, instead of a double-header weekend in 2 weeks' time, we will be having just one race, one 50-minute mini-endurance race around the Nordschleife. And you might say, well, 50 minutes, that doesn't seem much like an endurance, but it's the Nordschleife, and 50 minutes is still a tall order. Trying to keep concentration for that long is not an easy feat, especially at such a difficult technical track like the Nordschleife. That 50-minute lap will only be about, as we're actually missing an onboard overtake here because we're inside the car. Side by side, Barry Clayton, Jack Hodson, they do in fact make contact as we head through Stirling's here, and it's Barry Clayton ahead of Jack Hodson there. Jack Hodson a little bit of oversteer as he heads through Stirling's and onto clearways. That cost him some time, and time he has lost, of course, in that overtake performed by Barry Clayton. That's Barry Clayton up into P4 now. Let's have a look at the pace compared to Alan Matthews. On that last lap, it was a 27.1, actually slightly faster. No, it was 28.3 as they crossed the line there. So Alan Matthews is second faster, but of course Barry Clayton
in the midst of battle. The next lap we'll get a more representative look at how they're performing. In fact, we'll try and do that sector by sector for you watching at home. Well, so speaking of sectors, I should say, Colin Keith 26.1 through that first sector, absolutely flying along, a couple of tenths faster than John Cole that time round. He is absolutely in a league of his own, and there is an alarm going off. It sounds like an Alfa Romeo alarm outside, so I do apologise. Give me a small intermission. My apologies, service shall resume. It wasn't an Alfa Romeo alarm, it was a Fiat alarm, which we won't make any comments about them being the same thing. But as we head now into the second part of the lap, Colin Keith 23 once again, he improves. Still, he's absolutely flying along as the fuel load gets lighter. His last lap, by the way, would have put him on pole position in the end. John Cole, of course, didn't improve on his 125.136. Colin Keith just had a 125.134, so not even halfway through the race, not even halfway through the fuel load, and the tyres, of course, well scrubbed in, well up to temperature by now, and Colin Keith is still setting competitive laps for a qualifying session. But let's have a look now as we cross the line. Barry Clayton, Alan Matthews. It's a 26.8 for Barry Clayton that time round, and a 26.8 for Alan Matthews, and also a 26.8 for Jack Hodson. The midfield there, ultra competitive as ever. Jack Hodson is doing actually a very impressive job of keeping up with Barry Clayton here. Oh, the commentator's curse. Oh, how I have missed ye. Heading through Druids, and there is Jack Hodson spat off entirely. I am so sorry, Jack. That is completely my fault. You know what? I was thinking, actually, of course, last week, unfortunately, I missed the Formula Alpha action. I was doing some real-life commentary, and there was very little commentator's curse there. There was the odd bit here or there, but given I was commentating over 12 races, 8 hours, the odd spot of commentator's curse, not bad at all. So apparently I'm making up for that now by sending Jack Hodson into oblivion, so I do apologise, Jack. But let's have a look once again at... In fact, no, we're going to stay on board with Jack because he's given us some more action. So in a weird way, thank you. Because now we have some great action going on between Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodson here. Jack Hodson has shown more pace throughout most of this race, but of course has been brought back into sight of Andrew Brammer. And Andrew Brammer, more importantly perhaps, hasn't had enough. His tyres might be at this stage, although they're probably improving in Jack's case. Andrew's tyres might be a little bit happier, a little bit better temperature-wise, maybe a little bit less dirt and crisis on the tyres themselves. Although, as I say, they should have scrubbed off by now. Oh yes, launch striker, 50 minutes. Impressive. That should be a fun one to watch. And of course, North Striker is so long, will probably only be around about 10 laps in that race, in that 50-minute race. That'll only be 10 laps across all of the racing, and maybe a little bit more, 10, 11, 12, that sort of number there. But there won't be too many laps, because of course, very long circuit. Very long circuit. I know it relatively well. I should be learning it because I'm heading taking my car on time. I hope you enjoy commentary in the Alfa Romeo Racing Week. I hope the next commentation is on. There's a reason I commentate. Don't cry. P4, personal best in sector 1 there. 126.0. He's really picking up the pace now, closing that gap to Alan Matthews as we head down through the clearways in just a moment. Once again, he's really on a bit of a charge. It is Barry Clayton in that red and yellow liveried car there. That should be a good battle. We've said it in qualifying. We've said it so many times over the years. Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton, always a fun racing pair, and I think we're about to see some more of that. 7 laps into the race. Still plenty of racing action to go. At this stage, this is the stage now where the tyres, by no means bad, but there's still quite a bit of fuel in the car, and tyres are a little bit past their best now. So now we'll start to see the times not quite as impressive as they were for a little bit. It should pick up later on, though, as the fuel load gets lighter. No one currently improving. I say that, and Colin Knief finds some time in the final sector, as does Andrew Bram in the middle sector, so we've completely disproven it. That last lap, by the way, for Colin Knief was 1:25.0. Impressive pace from Colin there. Maybe finding half a second by the looks of things. Just going on board with him. Let's see if he is actually about to set the lap that I think he's about to. No, he's just set that lap. So he's currently half a second up on that previous, which the timing system and the graphics on screen seem to disagree with each other. So I tell you what, we'll just wait until the end of the lap and enjoy a fast lap with Colin Knief here at Brands Hatch. Colin looking very impressive here at Brands Hatch. See the brake disc glowing red hot there. Flames on the overrun as well. So many of the usual slogans in so far this evening. We're just about, in fact, we have just crossed over the halfway point of the time. We do have an extra lap though to finish off the race, and Colin is 6.5 seconds clear of the rest of the field. John Cole is doing his best to keep up. It's a 25.4. These two at the top end are by far and away the fastest cars out on track at the moment, but just there's no answer to Colin at the moment. Matt Daly, unfortunately, not here so far this evening. We thought we might see him. Maybe he'll be joining later on, which of course isn't going to help his championship. So let's have a look at how the championship standings are shaping up at the moment. We're about a third of the way through the championship. In fact, we're going to get past that. Colin Knief perhaps to the surprise of no one, 145 points to his name. Lead at the moment. Then in P2, it's Matt Daly with 102 points, Will Inglis with 101. They are very close together, both not present this evening. What does that mean? Well, that means Alan Matthews, going to be running P3 in this race, is going to leapfrog them and jump into P2 in the championship. Is Alan Matthews. Always had a strong showing in the touring car, has Alan, and that continues on as we get closer to the halfway point of the season. Then we have John Cole, who's currently P5 in the championship, 85 points to his name, one of our few highest safety rated drivers, with an A+ safety rating there. I should mention we have also Matt Daly with Matt Daly with the A+ and Colin with the A star. Never putting the foot wrong is Colin Knief, apparently. That's a fun one, actually. We should do that more often in future. We should rank people based on their safety rating. We'll appreciate that. And I'm sure Guy will. This is, of course, over all the session that we've done with various riders. I'm sure it comes as no shock. Guy who might be watching, maybe he's busy, probably busy for a Guy. That Guy is currently off. Guy currently has a D safety rating. Good job there. You're leading the Denison Derby Championship at least. Yes, Colin Knief now 7.5 seconds ahead of the champion, ahead of this race. He's ahead of the championship as well. Then we have John Cole, 85 points to his name. So this will still be a really good race for his championship as he gets closer, and in fact should leapfrog Matt Daly and Alan Matthews. Oh, sorry, no, not Alan Matthews. Matt Daly and Will Inglis as well. Andrew Brammer and Barry Clayton in that mid-pack race in the championship as well. They'll gain quite a few points this weekend. This is going to be one of those weekends where, as there aren't too many drivers in attendance, the championship has completely changed up, and it's weekends like this that can make it so exciting later on into the season. Because while we might not look back and remember Brands Hatch all that much, even though it's brilliant stuff and I love it dearly, what we will remember is the fact that it's had a great effect on the championship, and it will extend actually the fight in the championship until the very end. Maybe not Knief, because he's doing such a good job out there, but at least in the mid-pack in the championship, he is. The fight will continue on, because we're going to have differences in attendances later on into the season, and hopefully we'll have a big Nice final rounding out round where everyone's here and everyone's racing and trading paint and boosting each other off circuit, all that good stuff. Then we have, let's have a look, Jack Hodson as well, 46 points to his name, so again, a good number of points to be had here. Likewise for Steve Knight as well. Just under 10 minutes to go in this session, and everyone's found a nice comfy bit of track to occupy, really, where they're not under too much pressure. Jack Hodson potentially the only driver under any real pressure at the moment. He had obviously having that off at Druids earlier on, which was completely my fault. 1.1 seconds now the difference between him and Andrew Brammer. It was going to go one or two ways, and I was completely wrong about either of them. I thought either Jack Hodson was going to have lost his confidence in the car a bit, maybe the tyres were a little bit off, and he was going to be struggling for the rest of the race, and Andrew Brammer would be all over him, potentially overtaking him, or I thought he would pick up the pace once again and be clear of Andrew Brammer. What had actually happened is a mixture of Jack Hodson's done very well to get that car back underway and has got the lap times good once again, but that's also given Andrew Brammer a reference. It's also given him an idea of who to follow along and who to try and learn a little bit more about the circuit with. And what that's meant is that the gap has extended ever so slightly. You know, it's not only 0.2 of a second anymore, but these two are still very much racing. There are 11 laps into this race so far. The fuel load will now be getting quite light, and the tyres won't be entirely happy at this stage, but should still be quite raceable. And these two are now very much a nuisance to each other, shall we say. Speaking of being a nuisance to each other, it's the fight for the podium. It's back on. It's between Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton. We saw earlier on Barry Clayton was starting to gain that momentum, starting to hunt down Alan Matthews, and now the fight is on, as I say, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see as we head through to Surtees in just a moment, where it's gone so wrong for many drivers in the past. I think John Cole at the start of this race, of course, a little bit too wide on the exit of Surtees, basically sealed his fate in P2. Not that that's bad by any means, but it's certainly not good for his race. As what is good for Colin Kniight's race is the fact that he's just set a 1:24.8, which actually beats his qualifying time. So very impressive there. We see Alan Matthews just heading through the Hawthorne bend there. A bit of rear end instability on his car. The back end just stepping out ever so slightly. He's got that under control and is still ahead of Barry Clayton, of course, but he doesn't want to replicate that too much. I was like, it will not be too wise to while we appreciate drifting and it looks brilliant, it's not the optimal way to get around a racetrack. Although, if you did catch any of my, not that I'm plugging my other commentary, I won't even say what type of racing it was with. If you were watching along with some of my commentary last week in real life, it was a completely soaked track in parts with slick tyres. So drifting was the only way around this circuit. I should mention we haven't been on that circuit for about 8 years, so the morning's racing with a wet track was very fun. I was certainly glad to be in a warm and dry commentary box. I'm in a very warm and dry commentary box at the moment. I'm very appreciative of it. Still, I feel like I should be in a nursing home. We've managed to dive into talking about the weather, but it's still very cold out there, and the multi-air powered Alpha is appreciating it. If anyone else is enjoying the many quirks and benefits of a multi-air powered Alfa Romeo, particularly the 1.4 engine, I'm sure you join me in solidarity in the 5-minute wait of a 3-degree morning, because if you try and drive it off a bit too early, it will be very unhappy with you. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just what it does. What can I say? She's on 99,800 miles now. She's getting close to the magic 6-figure number. Done very well, has the little Mito, and of course it didn't make it to National Alpha Day, but we've got to start thinking about that type of thing soon. It's only 5 months away, isn't it? The racing league saw about Mito. Will be present at National Alpha Day once again. Who is present, though, is Barry Clayton. He's present in Alan Matthews' mirrors as we head through Paddock Hill Bend once again. 5 minutes to go in this race now. I'm sure Colin will probably fallen asleep at the wheel, actually, as he heads down the Pilgrim's Drop. A great opportunity to gain some speed there, and a great opportunity to test the brakes as well, because getting all that momentum just a bit immediately. Of course, we're going to go on board with not Jack Hodston, but Jack Hodston. There's that gap locking between him and Andrew Brammer. They are lapping together very nicely indeed at the moment, but speaking of someone who was lacking together, it is Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton. This battle that we've been contemplating for a little while now. Will it, won't it happen? It is certainly happening now. No kind of brave moves being made yet. Some excellent racecraft from these two. They know you don't want to try anything too risky, too brave, because the track is just not a forgiving one. It's what I like about British circuits is there's no sweeping seas of tarmac where you can, oh no, I've had enough, and I can just kind of go a little bit wide from the corner and just join the track safely in the next couple of moments. No, if you have an off here, you are very much off for at least the 20 seconds, even not for the rest of the race. And that's a big oversteer moment for Alan Matthews. It appears to be, and this is perhaps no surprise here at Brands Hatch, of course, really limited circuit by the looks of things, because it's a lot of rear end sliding I'm seeing from a few of these cars now. And let's see here, Barry Clayton having a look around the outside, Paddock Hill Bend. That is certainly a brave move if you can make it stick. He wasn't able to this time around though. What can he do under braking into Druitt? Again, another opportunity for an overtake around the outside. Not what you immediately think of doing, but you can do it. Let's have a look though. The next left coming up is the Graham Hill Bend, going a little bit wide on entry. You can do that. It's one of the few places on the circuit where you can get away with that. You can ride up and over the curb there. It's going to be the outside line that Barry Clayton wants to go for if he head through Surtees. Now he's going to have to stay behind though, which could benefit him. He benefits from a little bit of a slipstream heading down the Pilgrim's Drop. More than a traditional touring car, it's a GT car of course. You can find a few miles an hour in the slipstream, and that is helpful. We've got a big barn door of a wing on the back of these cars, and in general GT cars never tend to feel that powerful owing to the factory traction control and owing to just how much downforce they run. They run often a restricted engine compared to their real-life counterparts, and that can hurt them in terms of straight-line performance. Well, it doesn't hurt them, but they can not often feel the fastest things in the world. But that has certainly not stopped Alan Matthews at this point in time. He gave that slipstream to Barry Clayton, but there was nothing Barry Clayton could do. Alan Matthews, with a brilliant drive here so far this evening, has had quite a lot of pressure on him for quite some time now and has not cracked underneath it. Only 0.4 of a second separating these two drivers. Actually, on that last lap, still competitive, a 127.7. Competitive with the rest of the field, despite being in the midst of battle. The two at the front, by the way, I should mention, in the 26s. The tyres starting to drop off a little bit now. Heading into Druitt, potentially a little bit wide on entry, a little bit too late on the brakes for Alan Matthews, but still nothing that Barry Clayton could do. I say these cars often restricted, not in the case of the LP GTM GT3. Of course, not used as a real GT3 car in real life, and what a great shame that is. A little bit of a bump in power compared to the real-life version of this 2.9-litre V6 engine. It's 565 horsepower on tap as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop once again. In the slipstream once again is Barry Clayton, but once again, and I'm going to keep saying the words once again, nothing he can do. Why could that be? Potentially, and what I'm suspecting, a bit of a difference in setup here. We're seeing we're seeing an equalness. That's a brilliant term, Reeve. Very professional of you. We're seeing a match in terms of straight line performance when Barry Clayton is in the slipstream. Let's have a look at the sector times at the moment. That middle sector has some technical parts, but more importantly does have that run down the Pilgrim's Drop, and we're seeing about a 200th of a second deficit in Barry Clayton's corner in terms of that middle sector. So what I'm suspecting is there's more downforce in Barry Clayton's car. Open setup championship, of course. Drivers will change the setup to their needs and how they can drive the car best, but there will be an optimal way to get a car, set up a car for this circuit, and potentially Alan Matthews' car is a little bit lent more to that direction, because even in the slipstream, as I say, Barry Clayton losing time. We're heading through Druids once again. It doesn't look quite as close as it did last time we headed through this part of the lap, but still do not count Barry Clayton out yet. The timer hit 0. Colin Knief will be coming to the end of the running here. We're on the penultimate lap of this race now. 11 seconds the margin between John Cole and Colin Knief. He's had a great drive so far this evening. Will be further boosting his championship potential. And we're not even halfway through this season yet. We're certainly more than halfway through this race, though. We're at the end of this race, but yet the action does not stop. We're going to be heading through the Hawthorne Bend in just a moment's time. There we're seeing the in-car rear view mirror camera, a mainstay of modern GT cars, of course, another technical innovation, and it's very much keeping Alan Matthews reminded that Barry Clayton is hot on his heels. Having a look at the outside of each corner he goes through. Is Barry Clayton anything he can do? Not yet. He's going to have to potentially wait for a mistake or a bit more momentum as we head through Stirling's in just a second. Still trying to poke a nose around the outside of the track. Going to be very much embedded in the slipstream of that Alpha GTM GT3 up in front of him. Graham Hill Bend now. And still no respite for Alan Matthews. A bit of an oversteer moment. Once again, the back end of the car must not be happy by now. Colin Keefe, I should mention, is on the final lap of this race, just heading down the Pilgrim's Drop as we speak. Alan Matthews slightly slower on that lap. Barry Clayton has caught up, as we see him there, going as wide as possible, trying to carry as much speed through the Paddock Hill Bend there, going through Druids. He's even closer than we've seen him beforehand. Who gets a better run on the exit of Druids? It's going to be Alan Matthews, but only just, as John Cole overtakes Colin Keefe. And why is that? Colin Keefe is out of fuel on the last lap. What has happened there? Oh dear, what a shame for Colin Keefe. A great drive so far in this race, and I'm just lost for words. What is happening this season? We're seeing quite a few having issues on the last lap. And that is Colin Keefe, after a brilliant drive in qualifying in race 1, eliminated from the running in race 2. And it just goes to show it's very much a case of her and the tortoise. Not to say that John Cole's been a tortoise this race. He's been remarkably fast. But we thought his race-winning hopes were over after lap 1, to be honest. But here he is, heading onto the Brabham Straight in the lead of race 1 this weekend. Congratulations, John Cole, and I still can't believe I'm saying that, for your race victory in race 1. And that just ups the ante even more for this battle for P2 here. It's Barry Clayton against Alan Matthews, heading through the Clark curve here, because of course the position has changed once again. It's now Barry Clayton in front of this battle as well, because while all of that was going on at the front, Barry Clayton has finally got past Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, misfortune for him, just like Colin Keefe on the last lap, finally cracked under pressure. It's Barry Clayton, who comes home in P2. Alan Matthews rounds out the podium in P3 there. Colin Keefe will not be... he'll be classified, but he'll be plumb last. That is a great shame for Colin Keefe. Jack Hudson comes home P4. Andrew Brammer will come home P5. Will Colin Keefe be classified P6? No, I think he's going to be classified P7. He didn't cross the line. He did not have the momentum to get the car up the hill to cross the line there. So Steve Knight will be coming home P6. Steve Knight also... No, Steve Knight has finished. And there is confirmation from the paddock that it is in fact a fueling issue for Colin Keefe's car there. He ran out of fuel at the very end. He was pushing, and he was pushing well. You've got a question. He had 10 seconds margin. Could he have let off the throttle a little bit? Could he have lifted and coasted ever so slightly more to try and bring that car home? What I fear, and what I suspect, given how good Colin Keefe is at the wheel, is that pace was demonstrated with lift and coast. I suspect he was probably fuel saving. He was probably going a bit trim on the fuel. Unfortunately, it was not enough for him. And a twist at the end of the race there. I'm still in awe. But either way, congratulations, John Cole, for your race victory here in race 1. And if you thought that wasn't exciting enough, I have good news for you. The reverse grid will be in effect for race 2 here at Brands Hatch in a few minutes. The order will be changed and the action will be upped even more. So don't go anymore. Don't go anywhere. Try that again. It's just the excitement. Don't go anywhere. We'll catch you in just a few minutes for race 2 here at Brands Hatch. Welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. On the grid now for race 2, the reverse grid race. Speaking of the grid, let's have a look at them. Now, if there is one very small crumb of comfort Colin Cleese can take away from that race finish, I was about to say, is that Colin will take a fairly high race start. But that isn't the case. He's down in P6. So it's Andrew Brammer, Jack Hodson on the front row. Then we have Alan Matthews, Barry Clayton on the second, John Cole, Colin Cleese fighting, of course, on the front row at the start of race 1, and now fighting at the back on the row 3, and then Steve Knight in P7 there. So, looks like half of the grid has been changed around as we have just under 30 seconds now until lights out. And there we see the skid marks from the previous race launches. There, it was a good getaway last time for Colin Cleese. This car, I should mention, not an easy car to get off the line with. It is, of course, a single clutch sequential car. You are expected to do have to nail the clutch on this because it will either stall out or spin its tyres excessively. So let's see how it goes. It sticks right on the gantry, and we are away. And there is a spin of excess from Andrew Brammer there, as mentioned. Thank you, on cue. But we are away and heading down towards Paddock Hill Bend. It's Jack Hodson who will be on the outside line there, potentially under threat from any errant cars who go too deep into the corner, but everyone makes it through clear once again. The slightly reduced grid working wonders for both race starts so far this evening. John Cole up into P4, Colin Cleese just behind him. So really with this, again, with the smaller grid, not too much lost in the reverse grid action as it turns out. Colin Cleese sneaks on through as well as we head through the Graham Hill Bend there. Around the outside, a bit of a favourite racing line through that corner. The corner's so tight, I suppose. Going for the inside line that isn't going to work, quite frankly. A few drivers running the headlights on, of course, as we see John Cole now in that slipstream of Jack Hodson's car there. Currently running in P3 is Jack Hodson. Have midfield leading pace. All the midfielders, to say, were very competitive in race 1, so he should be in a good position here in this race, as should all of them in the midfield, really. We'll have to watch out for John Cole and Colin Cleese. They are going to be the two who are going to try and scythe their way up through the order here. Colin Cleese and John Cole make contact. And that was actually Colin Cleese rear-ending John Cole there. The back end of John Cole's car steps out. He is very fortunate and very skilled to actually catch that as we run down towards Stirling's, and is still underway. Colin Cleese doesn't seize on any opportunities to overtake. I think he holds his hands up and says racing incident there. I don't think that was anyone's fault, really, and no major ill effect of it, which is good to see. So we carry on. Meanwhile, the front end... Oh, there's big contact between Alan Matthews and Andrew Brammer there. I was just about to say, it's getting very close at the front end of the field. And how close? It's too close. They actually pretty much turned into each other, I think. One trying to defend one line, one trying to take another line, and they made contact big time. And that is Alan Matthews off and into the scenery at Paddock Hill Bend. He is able to get back on track, only 4 seconds off the time as well, but that 4 seconds has dropped him down to P6, so fighting from the lead of this race and into P6. John Cole, meanwhile, up into P2 as we head through 30s. He's now going to have the slipstream of Andrew Brammer to take advantage of as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop once again. See that sea of Alfa Romeo grills heading down the Pilgrim's Drop. It's Jack Hodson actually trying to find a way past John Cole here. I don't actually think they were trying to find a way past John Cole. I think they were trying to defend from Colin Cleese. At least that's what they'll try and tell the stewards as we head through the Hawthorn right-hander now. Going wider than wider than Colin Cleese. No, I was getting confused. Going wider than Colin Cleese through the exit of the Hawthorn right-hander there. It's going to be Stirling's in just a moment's time. It is a sea of cars. The 5 cars here are all fighting for P1 effectively. This is a 1.5 second gap from P1 down to P5, and in fact the top 3 separated by only 1 second here, so very close running indeed. John Cole on Andrew Brammer as we head across the Brammer Straight once again into that first corner. It's going to be a little bit of oversteer for Andrew Brammer. That leaves the inside open for John Cole. More momentum in John Cole's car, of course, and he says thank you very much, taking the position. It's John Cole into the lead of this race. What he wanted to do in P1 on track, in race 1 on track, he was able to do at the end, of course, not through any kind of merit of his own really, but he's now done it on his own merit in race 2. He's in the lead of this race by half a second as well. That messy first corner has really cost Andrew Brammer. He's now a bit of a cork in the bottle, if you will. It's Jack Hodson, Colin Cleese, Barry Clayton, all in quick succession just behind him by only 0.6 of a second as well. That is what covers those cars behind Andrew Brammer. Side by side now, Colin Keneath and Barry Clayton. It's going to be Barry Clayton with the outside and Colin Keneath with that inside line. It's nice and easy into Hawthorn. It is a clear overtaking opportunity, and it is Colin Keneath up into P4. This is now a very important phase of this race for John Cole. We are only 5 minutes in, but he's building a gap to those cars behind, and Colin Keneath, his nearest rival, is stuck in that queue behind Andrew Brammer. So now is his opportunity, with little pressure from those trying to rival him, while his tyres are still fresh, while the fuel load is still a little bit heavy but getting lighter. Now is his opportunity to try and break away from Colin Keneath, build a safety margin, and hope that we can extend that fight until the end of the race. It is Jack Cotton ahead of Andrew Brammer now. It's going to be nearly 3 wide for a second there, I thought, into the Paddock Hill bend. That is very brave. It wasn't, though, I am pleased to report. And in fact, Andrew Brammer losing out 2 positions in that first corner of the lap. It's going to be Jack Cotton into P2, Colin Keneath into P3 as we head through Druids now. And now it's actually looking like Andrew Brammer could be under threat from Barry Clayton here. Only 0.5 of a second covering them as we head through to the Clark. Sorry, I'm constantly getting the Clark Curve and Graham Hill Bend confused. I don't know why, I just am. But either way, it is Jack Cotton who is in P2. P2 down to P5. Very close running here. And this is helping out John Cole immensely. He's setting purple sectors at the moment. Of course, holds the fastest lap of this race by about 0.5 seconds as well. It's a purple sector one. It's 26.4 for John Cole. Meanwhile, it's Jack Cotton under pressure from Colin Keneath. Only 1/10 separating them. Colin Keneath potentially having a look at the inside line. He will go for the inside. Was that contact between the two there? It was not contact between the two. It looks like that was just Jack Cotton's own off there. How much has that cost him? Well, we see Alan Matthews, who has had a very difficult race so far. He's got ahead of Steve Knight, but it looks like Jack Cotton has been able to get underway. He has, but has lost a few seconds in that instant. Alan Matthews, unfortunately for him, a bit of a race to forget so far. Nothing really he can do from that far back. He's got some decent pace underneath him, was in the middle of battle with Steve Knight there. That's cost him big time. He was only 1:30 on that last lap, while everyone else in the 26s, 27s, 28s. So he hasn't been able to close up on those cars up in front of him yet. I didn't see him go into the wall, but I suspect maybe some damage on his car. Still 18 minutes to go in this race, so we'll see if he is able to catch up and get involved in that midfield battle, because what a midfield battle it's turning out to be. And that is unfortunate news for John Cole coming up. That is Colin Keneath now clear of Andrew Brammer, Barry Clayton and Jack Hodson. Of course, with that incident, Jack Hodson drops down to P5 and Colin Keneath is now running in P2 and already putting in those purple mini sectors. Sorry, not even mini sectors, purple sectors there. It's a 26.12 for Colin Keneath and a 26.17 for John Cole on that last sector. So just like we had in qualifying, oh so close between those two running for the victory in this race. Now it's Andrew Brammer against Barry Clayton here, just as we have a battle brewing for P1. We have a battle currently in progress for P3 here. Andrew Brammer currently defending his position for the podium. Well, Barry Clayton up the inside at Hawthorn says thank you very much. A bit of a textbook move, a bit of a favourite move that we've seen not only in this car but in the Giulietta a few seasons ago as well. It is now Andrew Brammer up into P4 ahead of Jack Hodson here. Barry Clayton will be the next if he's able to bring forward this momentum. 2.5 seconds was the gap between John Cole and Colin Keneath. Now it's going to be down to, in fact, no, it's still 2.5 seconds. Colin Keneath potentially losing some time in the final sector there. He does lose some time in the final sector, but it's still 0.6 of a second faster than his previous fastest lap. And with such a strong middle sector, sees him as the new owner of the fastest lap of this race so far, at 1:25.4, an impressive time there, and the time should be tumbling further still. I think that close up that gap to John Cole. This is what we've been waiting for, a battle for the lead here at Brands Hatch. The battling is still going on in the midfield though, and we do actually have it from the pit lane. We do have confirmation of what happened for Colin Keneath in race 1. It was something as simple as just running out of fuel, unfortunately for him. So what was supposed to be an easy 25-26 points for Colin Keneath ended up being just a couple of points in the end there. And the reasoning for that is Colin actually done his fuel prediction based on the quali fuel usage. And what I presume was the case is obviously you run slightly less fuel in quali, a little bit less weight in the car, the car needs a little bit less energy to get back up to speed. So the fuel efficiency was probably slightly higher in quali than it was in the race, and the fuel usage was, according to Colin, about 0.1 of a lap higher, 0.1 of a litre per lap higher in qualifying than it was in the race. And was such a small margin, Colin did not notice that until the engine shut off. But a grave misfortune for him. The car died on clearways, if I'm not mistaken, so only 2 corners to go, and that cost him the race. He'll be hoping, and I'm sure his running action car probably a little bit heavier in race 2 here. He's probably added a litre or 2, maybe even 5 just to be safe. He's hoping that the same does not occur here in race 2. The gap has closed between him and John Cole. An impressive purple sector in sector 2 and sector 3 last time around sees that gap now at just 1.6 seconds. He's found 3/10 just in the past couple of corners. The battle, ladies and gentlemen, is very much on now for P1 in this race. Elsewhere in the field, the battle is still actually going on between what we saw in race 1. It's Andrew Brammer versus Jack Hodson. This time around, it is Jack Hodson behind Andrew Brammer, and I imagine we could be seeing a bit of a battle forming up between them. In terms of their pace at the moment, it's a 126.9 on that last lap for Andrew Brammer, and actually quite a slow lap for Jack Hodson, 127.2. So I suspect maybe something going on that has cost him that position. Maybe not, actually, it's only 0.3 of a second. We'll have a more representative idea of pace, I suspect, on this lap and see how these two are going to be enjoying their battle. Meanwhile, the gap between the two front runners in this race has remained now for a lap at about that 2-second margin. John Cole picking up the pace ever so slightly. That last lap, by the way, for Colin Keefe was a 125.1. That would, once again, just like race 1, would have put him on pole in this qualifying session. So, impressive time for the runners there. Time though, tumbling down now, an impressive middle sector for Colin Keefe that time around. It's a 23.0, nearly into 22s in the middle sector, once again qualifying, rivaling times, and now John Cole is going to know that pressure is on. We're not quite halfway through this race just yet, and Colin Keefe is predicted a 24 on this lap. He crosses the line, it is a 24.9, that's half a second faster than John Cole that time around. The fight is now on, ladies and gentlemen, as we head through the Paddock Hill bend. Seconds now, dropping down the Pilgrim Drop, the highest speed part of the whole circuit. In fact, probably matching that of the Paddock Hill bend. 2 very fast downhill sections on this Brands Hatch circuit. 1.1 second now, that margin. Of course, we know it's one thing to catch up, it's another thing to actually perform the overtakes. Let's see how these two fare now. Let's have a look at things though in the championship, at least after race 1. Of course, Colin Keefe does not extend his championship lead by as much as we suspected. 153 points. That has brought John Cole comfortably into P2 now. 110 points with that race victory, of course. He'll be fighting for victory once again. 110 points brings him back into contention. Alan Matthews as well. Great showing for him into P3 in this championship. Before P2. No, it'll be P3 instead. With 107 points, was named a few points ahead of Matt Daly and Will English. Barry Clayton, meanwhile, jumps up to P6, as was Andrew Brammer into P7 as well, so 7 points in his name. Jack Hodson, of course, also leapfrogging a few in this championship. Steve Knight as well, now matching Paul Millman in terms of points scored. 1 point behind Rob Whitley and 4 points behind Rosie Oliver. So that low midfield action as well, also firing up in this season. Still not halfway through the season just yet. is what we'd have in an old school format. 3 years ago. There is a bit of that effect, but not too much here in the second quarter. We're about 10 laps into this race now, so one thing to think about is the tyres as well. The tyres will be beginning to drop off, and the car will be, of course, getting lighter in terms of fuel load. Someone car like Collins, for example, might be a little bit heavier in terms of fuel load, as they want to be playing it safe, of course. Better to score at least some points in P2 than the very little points down in P7. That gap, though, as I say, it hasn't closed up. It now jumps down to half a second, despite it's now very much on as we head through the Graham Hill bend. Gets ahead of Andrew Brammer, a move that wasn't entirely looking like it was going to be concrete and destined to happen. These two were slowing themselves down though in battle. They've dropped off from the likes of Barry Clayton, now about 10 seconds down on that group of cars. For these drivers here, but we're focused though on the lapping action between John Cole and Colin Keneath as we head down to Stirling's in just a moment. To keep Colin Keneath at bay at least for as long as possible. That is one of the benefits of Britain's quality. Arguing these cars not the most raceable, certainly very narrow at certain points. That narrowness and that technicality does provide benefits in terms of defending. The corners of course kind of fall away from you, and the inside line often not the ideal line at this circuit. As Andrew Brammer's had a big off in P5 there, completely eliminated his front wing at Stirling. He's got no momentum as well heading down. Clear ways that's going to cost him big time in terms of lap time, of course. Will cost him in terms of lap time heading throughout the rest of the race. Heading through the Graham Hill bend here. Colin Keneath putting the pressure on John Cole. At this point in that review camera, all John Cole can see is that Martini logo of the red and white liveried car. As he puts the pressure on just Colin Keneath and benefits a little bit from that slipstream. But we can see there, John Cole actually breaking away in terms of straight line performance. We were talking about in race 1, of course, the difference in setup. Potentially seeing a difference there, as it looks to be that John Cole has a slightly faster car in terms of straight line performance, at least running down the Pilgrim's Drop. Of course, the other factors such as I say, fuel load, also shift points as well. Gear ratios, one to watch out for. Of course, we saw they're heading through Hawthorne actually. Obviously getting a little bit upset heading over the dirt there. That is not ideal. It's cost him a few tenths of a second. He's been able to get back underway, but has lost some time, as I say. Heading into that first corner then, a few tenths of a second down on that lap, just to confirm that. Just over 5 minutes ago in this race now, we're expecting about a 17-lap race here for the first grid race. The grid is, of course, normalised to what we would usually expect to see, with John Cole and Colin Keneath fighting out in front, and then an impressive midfield battle going on further down the grid. Alan Matthews is really not an ideal race for him in the 130. Still, I suspect, serious damage on that car after that early race instance, so what a shame for him. It's just not going to be as enjoyable as a race as race 1 turned out to be. But Colin Keneath here, 6 tenths of a second. John Cole doing a very good job of keeping Colin at bay, it must be said. Of course, we knew he had great pace from race 1. Of course, ended up winning race 1. That wasn't really as a result of an improved pace compared to Colin Keneath. And qualifying did end up just about going in Colin Keneath's way, but we saw how thin the margins were. The fact that he had to extend that margin to a 2/10 margin, that was considered big compared to his previous qualifying pole margin in the case of Colin Keneath. We knew it was going to be a good battle, and John Cole certainly had the pace to keep Colin Keneath at bay. It's a 25.6 predicted on this lap, and for Colin Keneath, a little bit faster because he has closed that gap up ever so slightly, and then we have confirmation of that. It's a 125.5. And if you want to follow along, of course, you can. Hopefully you follow along by watching the stream here. But if you also want to follow along with the timing system, you can go on any internet-connected device. That isn't the one that you're currently watching it on, of course, as thought there that John Cole had a bit of an issue, and he did. That has brought Colin Knief right into play now. Only 0.2 seconds separating these two cars, fighting for the lead. If you want to see how this battle is looking from a timing perspective, you can do so on another internet-connected device, as I say, going to aroc.assetocourseservers.com. That's aroc, A-R-O-C, .assetocourseservers, all one word, .com, and there you will see what is the current session in progress, which is this one, of course. You join via clicking timings, and then you can see exactly what everyone's best lap, last lap, deltas, laps completed, tyres being used, which of course the same in this series, and where they are on track as well. And what I can tell you is where they are on track in terms of John Cole and Colin Knief, it is right attached to each other. There we are, heading through Stirling's, and Colin Knief tried to move around the outside there, wasn't able to make it stick. He's going to have to dive back behind. And of course, every failed overtaking opportunity every failed overtaking opportunity you attempt is going to cost you in terms of lap time. And it did cost him a couple of tenths there in the case of Colin Knief, but he's got some serious momentum behind him now. In this late phase of the race, I think that pendulum swings towards Colin Knief's favour now as we head through the Paddock Hill bend. Very much at play is Colin Knief here, very much fighting for that race lead now. The back end stepping out ever so slightly on the exit of Druids though as we head through Graham Hill bend. We have more momentum. Once again, it's John Cole. A bit of a back end kick out for Colin Knief. Maybe this is why we are seeing Colin Knief not gunning it for the mid 25s in terms of lap time, because it's hurting the tyres. That could be it. We saw it in race 1, it seemed to be the rears that were limiting the drivers towards the end of the race. I think we're seeing a repeat of that. Of course, Colin Knief has had to work a little bit harder here in race 2 to try and close that gap to John Cole. And as he's pushing, potentially those tyres getting a little bit hot, losing the ideal conditions, starting to lose a little bit of grip. And he's able to get close to John Cole, but just isn't able to make that overtaking opportunity stick just yet. About 4 laps to go in this race, maybe 3 or 4 laps left here at Brands Hatch, and dwindling by the corner overtaking opportunity for Colin Knief. He is oh so close. He's doing an incredible job of putting that pressure on John Cole, just isn't able to find an overtaking move that sticks just yet. Great battle for the lead of the race here, giving each other just enough room, but only just, as they fight here at Brands Hatch. I hope you've enjoyed watching the racing so far this evening as much as I've enjoyed commentating, because we still have a little bit more racing to go. Has a look around the outside of Druids, does Colin Knief. That should give him a better line for the entry into the Graham Hill bend next, because the track kind of dives to the right ever so slightly. You don't really see it on the track diagram, but in person the track kind of corners off to the right before you get the left hander of the Graham Hill bend, but still wasn't enough to make Colin Knief think about an overtaking move. What can he do though as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop? I think what he's going to do is drop back ever so slightly. Once again, are we potentially seeing a difference in setup? We saw this in race 1 as well. Unfortunately, the names of the two cars battling, I believe Jack Cotton was involved, escaped me at this moment in time, but there was a difference in setup. Maybe it's Alan Matthews. Either way, difference in setup. We're seeing those with a slightly faster car at the top end, so those with maybe a little bit less downforce, maybe a slight difference in gear ratio. We're seeing winning out in the battling here, because while I might lose some time in the cornering, there aren't maybe enough overtaking opportunities here at Brands Hatch in these GT cars, and maybe what we're seeing is that you can defend well enough as long as you have enough momentum down the straight. Let's see what Colin Knief can do in these final dying laps of this race. Now, we want to get a little bit technical. We can talk about gear ratios. This car, with all the downforce it carries, doesn't have the utmost in terms of top speed. No GT car really does. And what we're seeing at these shorter British tracks is that, yes, while you might try and gear your car with a longer gear set, more towards top speed, often I've found, apart from tracks like Le Mans, with this car not having the most in terms of RPM limit as well, as the nature of its turbocharged engine, is that it can often be better to gear the car a little bit more towards acceleration, dip into 6th gear more frequently, and have a slightly faster accelerating gear. That can help you at certain points of the lap. I'm seeing Colin Knief is looking a little bit further behind. At least that's what I tried in the Winter Endurance Challenge. But maybe do the opposite of that, because do whatever I don't do might be what to go for. It worked at I remember we ran these cars at Las Vegas, and I tweaked around a bit with the gear ratios, and it seemed to work to my favour. I did it a few times in the Winter Endurance Challenge as well, and Again, could be entirely wrong. Completely ignore me if I am, but that was just my kind of 2 pence there. What we're seeing, though, is John Cole seems to be a little bit scruffy through Sterling's that time round, and they're going to be near enough side by side. I think Colcleif's going to try and make it stick around the outside as we get onto the Brabham Straight. The back end seems to kick out from him, though, and of course the outside isn't an ideal overtaking spot. And once again, John Cole very well on the defence there. When it looked to be potentially over for him, was able to keep Colcleif at bay, but that pressure is oh so high on him now. Has Colcleif dipped into the gravel? He has ever so slightly. That's cost him about a tenth. As we head through Druids now, he can claw that back if he is strong enough, and we know he is very strong indeed. He is ever so slightly clawing back. No, he is not. As we exit Druids, John Cole is looking strong here. Back end once again stepping away from Colin Knief. That gap builds up to half a second now. Late on the brakes goes Colin Knief. He claws back that margin once again, but once again the rear axle is looking so untamed on the car of Colin Knief. The time hits 0. This is the penultimate lap of this race, and there we see John Cole breaking away even more here. This is very much a fight for the race of this lead. For the lead of this race, it has been a fight for quite some time now. Colin Knief setting, of course, the fastest lap of this race. He takes away a point for that, a 1:24.6. But nothing he can do. Just as I thought, the momentum was swinging towards Colin Knief, as the old mantra is still very much true. It's one thing to catch up, it's another thing to overtake, and unfortunately for Colin Knief, just not quite able to overtake here at Brands Hatch. Going into this weekend, you'd have to say, with that championship showing, with that qualifying performance, it was Colin Knief who was the favourite for victories here this weekend, but it looks to be it's going to be John Cole as things stand. As we start the final lap of this race, John Cole leads with an 8/10 margin. Colin Knief a little bit slower, but as we saw in race 1, anything can happen on the final lap of AROC Racing League's action. So let's see as we head into the next corner now. It's Druids once again, 6/10 of a second now separating these two. The pressure not completely like a pressure cooker, but certainly still on the boil as we head through Graham Hill Bend. Sorry, I had to take a pause there for how awful that sounded. That was just far too cheesy, I do apologise. Anyway, let's have a look as we head through 30s. The car bouncing around there, very stiffly sprung these cars of course, and British circuits famously not forgiving in terms of the ride quality, shall we say. Of course, old school and bumpy. What we like, great racing opportunities on these old school British tracks that we visit in the Touring Car Series. And there is Colin Knief going too hard into Hawthorne, the right-hander there, going too fast, trying to push the car too much, and that has cost him. That has cost him big time in not only this race, but his final, sorry, not only in terms of time, but also in this race. One of his last big overtaking opportunities has been pretty much eliminated, and now drops back a second now. He's now 1.2 seconds down on John Cole, and this is John Cole's time to shine. He did it in race 1, but didn't get to really do it by racing. He's had to do it by racing this time. This one will feel even more deserved as he heads across the Brabham Straight. It is John Cole who takes race 2 victory. Congratulations, John. A brilliant drive this weekend. Double victory when we may not have predicted it in the end there. Colin Knief with an impressive drive in race 2. Of course, an impressive drive from race 1, only resulting in 2 P2s. Still a good haul of points and an impressive lead in the championship. Still, he'll be pleased, I'm sure, with this racing, if not slightly frustrated with how things ended for him. Barry Clayton then, an impressive drive in race 1. He's been rewarded for it in race 2 as well. Comes home in P3 in the end, rounding out the podium. And Jack Odlin was able to drive up to P4 there. Another good points haul for Jack. And then we have Andrew Bramwell coming home P5 in a moment's time. Steve Knight ahead of Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews has had a collision with Steve Knight by the looks of things. Not sure what went on there, but a race to forget really for Alan Matthews, as we have Andrew Bramwell coming across the line in P5 there. Every driver, of course, finishing on the lead lap of the race. Steve Martin coming home P6 to take away a few more points and leapfrogging a few of his rivals in the lower midfield. He'll be jumping up to P10 in the championship after this, with Alan Matthews unfortunately not taking away as many points as he would have otherwise liked. But this is Steve Knight coming home P6. No victory donuts so far. Come on, gents, don't disappoint me now. I'm worried. Alan Matthews comes home P7 and is slowing down. These could be victory donuts. No, I think he's run out of fuel by the sounds of that. I can't hear that turbo V6 roaring. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Jack, as well. gone for some off-road victory donuts for Andrew and some tarmac victory donuts for Jack Hodgson there. That is Alan Matthews very much out of fuel. That is what I imagine Colin Phillips was trying to do in race 1. He was trying to absolutely nail the fuel load. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for him. Oh no. No, the car's still got some fuel in it. Either way, that brings an end to... Oh! Demolition Derby. Now Steve might get involved in the victory donuts, trying to corrupt them. Either way, that brings an end to the racing action here at Brands Hatch. I hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating. That is it here for Brands Hatch. We'll catch you in a fortnight's time for the action at the Nordschleife, of course, an endurance event at the Nordschleife. So don't go anywhere for that. We'll see you in a week's time as well for the Formula Alpha action. So, from it.